marketing right there.
Yeah.
Well, listen, everybody, listen up.
Right there.
We're going to get the wheels rolling here so everybody can get home at a decent hour. Tonight it's a Friday night, so we got all family and friends. I'm just going to introduce the owner of this lovely property, and she is just as lovely as the property. And all ado, Scarlett.
Yay. Thank you, guys. I was going to speak about myself and a little about why I kind of took an interest in Charles. And I guess basically, like, I'm a single mom. 3 kids. I actually planned this on a weekend that I don't have my children, so they're not here. But I am a single mom of 3 kids, in a county that is supposed to be fabulous, and it is. But there's some things about it and the state that make it a little difficult for me to stay here, and for many of my friends, from what I hear, are struggling as well. So, I've been a Republican my whole life, as a lot of farmers around here are, and kind of want to change and need a change. So, and I realize that there's going to be certain people that aren't going to be able to take Maryland, because you need certain counties in the state to really be able to take Maryland as a Republican governor. And was surprised that Ehrlich took office, was happy to see he had Michael Steele, and kind of think he might be the next better and greater thing, I'm hoping. So, and hoping to bring some changes that will make my family, my life, for my sister and my mother, me, my 3 kids, my abilities to stay in this county, stay in the state, to run a small business. I run a small business. It's just getting very, very difficult. So anyway, Tammy is a really good friend of mine. We have kids that go to school together. And as true friends, I think a testament to true friendship is just when a true friend tells you something they believe in, you kind of jump in without really questioning too much, because you believe in them. And so, I volunteered to do this actually before I even met him too much, just based upon what Tammy said. And
that's called friendship, and friendship runs deep.
Right, it does. And that's why some of you are here, is just because you knew me, met me, and we're like, you know what? If she asks us to come, we'll come. We'll see what he has to say, see why she believes so strongly. So anyway, I want to thank you for coming to my home. Thank you for spending your Friday afternoon with me. Chick is a big Lollar supporter, and I'm going to bring him over to introduce the man with a plan. So, Chick, if you want to come on over, and you can take over where I left off.
Alright, that was awesome. I got to tell you, this is my first time coming out here, and reminds me of kind of home. I grew up in upstate New York, a small little town called Hudson Falls. It's right on the Hudson River.
Go figure.
And it's about 2 hours south of the Canadian-U.S. border, but it's all country up there, and all farmland and all dairy land. So I feel right at home here, and I'm sure you all do too. But with that said, you couldn't pick a finer place, a finer time to be here tonight, because it's we're at a crossroads in our country and our state, and that's why we're out giving up our time and our efforts and our resources to get together as family, friends, and try to put a strategy together to keep what we're earning, and try to keep our livelihoods, and look out for our children and our grandchildren, because it's slowly being taken away from us, from people that we send down to Annapolis that are supposedly looking out for the folk and looking out for the people, and they're doing anything but looking out for themselves and lining their pockets. So with that said, I'm just here tonight. I'm excited about a man that I'm going to introduce tonight. He's got a lovely wife here that are willing to commit their time and their efforts. The person, I've met Charles probably 6, 7 times. Karen, well, 6, 7 times. But anyway, the only reason I'm here is because Karen told me that I need to do this. So whatever Karen says.
You don't say no to Karen.
So
No to Karen.
whatever Karen says, then that's okay. That's what we do. But anyway, you couldn't be at a. You couldn't pick a finer place. This is totally awesome. I mean, this man here that I'm going to introduce you to you couldn't pick a finer, honorable man. A family man. He has integrity, he has self-worth, self-love, he's a God-fearing man, and he's got so much credentials, he's got leadership skills. We were at a meeting the other night, and I saw a whole different side of Charles I had not seen before. And I got to tell you, I grew up in a coaching family, and my father was a coach, my brother was a coach, my Uncle Ray was a coach. When you grow up in a coaching family, the standards are set high, and I thought we had set the standards high, and then we had a meeting the other night, and then the standards were set even higher. I'm like, oh my God, you gotta be kidding me. But with that said, Charles is a good man. He's a draft Charles, because he's not quite committed yet, but he will. And with that said, I'm going to introduce you a good quality man that you couldn't pick a finer person to come here and listen to tonight. And I consider him a good friend, him and his wife. And with that said, here's Charles Lollar. And try to keep it simple.
I'm going to keep it simple.
And not muck it up.
I'll do my best. And we will discuss the not committed portion, because we are very committed, but there's reasons why he had to say that, and I want to make sure for 100% disclosure, candor, and honesty that we talk those issues through. But first I want to start by thanking the lady of the house and her best man. You all are awesome. Thank you for opening up your home. And my word, the testament she gave, she never met me, but she opened up her home. Just think about that. It just blows me away. I know you too, right, babe? We're not trusting folks, not a whole lot. Me and Rocha, we tend to be a little bit like clams. We clam up. And we had our daughters, it was worse. I mean, for the first 6 months, we wouldn't even let my mom and dad keep our daughter. I mean, and that's my mom's, and I love her to pieces, but that was my Chelsea. I have 4 girls. I love them, each and every one of them. And we trust. When we trust wholeheartedly. That's why we don't give it away. We take the time to get to know people first before you throw anything out there. And for Scarlett, for you to open up your home and your family, I tell you what, God bless you. Thank you so much, and I will not embarrass you.
I do that pretty well by myself.
So I will absolutely not embarrass you. To that end, I'll make sure I keep my comments short, because I really want to hear more from you all than you all necessarily hear from me. There are some credentials, though, I do want to share with you, because if you're going to decide to support a guy like me, you should know a little bit about me. More so than the fact that I raised 4 girls and I'm married to Rocha now. Being in a home with 5 girls certainly does humble you. You learn a lot about yourself and about the process of life by doing so. Most importantly, you know your place in the world, right, Dale? You know that you're at the lower end of the totem pole. I mean, when I grew up, no, seriously, when I grew up, I was one of 2 boys, the youngest of 2 boys, and I saw how my dad interacted with my mom, and my mom was like the queen of everything, and he'd always, threaten us when I'm home. If your mom's upset, I'm going to get you when I get home, that kind of thing. But I never did understand just how intellectually superior women are to me. I'm not going to throw you under the bus, but I'm just saying, to me, because anytime I can get talked out of spanking you and you're 9 years old, that tells me you're much more intellectually superior than I am. And that happened to me an awful lot as I raised my girls. They're now all teenagers. My oldest one is 18. She's a freshman in college, finishing up her first year at St. Mary's. The other 3 are in high school. And watching them grow and realizing the kind of responsibility that it takes on a man to be the kind of father that his daughters will not only A, respect, look up to, but B, ensure they can come to him for advice. That's tough to get your girls to come to you, especially when you're getting older, because girls tend to stay up under their fathers, especially when they're this small, but they're learning. See, when you think they're up under you for affectionate purposes, they're actually learning you and they're studying you. And when they start seeing the least bit of hypocrisy, they call you to the carpet on it. And if you don't act in kind and explain yourself and make sure you don't repeat the same mistakes, they'll slowly but surely separate themselves in distance. And as they get older, that respect or disrespect is shown in their actions. And my 18-year-old is 18 years old, right? Obviously. So what am I going to do if she gets an attitude? I stopped spanking my daughters when they turn to be teenagers. Now it's on her. So I have to watch them do the eye thing and the head thing and do nothing, and it's infuriating. But what I learned along the way, and these are good characteristic tips to be a leader altogether, is you have to learn how to live not just around them, but when you're not with them. One of the things that I like to quote the most that I've learned over time is integrity is what you do when no one's looking, not when people are in front of you. It's easy to do the right thing when people are in front of you, but it's even harder to do the right thing when you know you can get away with something. But when you know in the back of your mind, somehow my daughters will find out, somehow karma, faith, whatever you want to call it, it gets back to them. You watch what you do, what you say, even in little things when you introduce and talk to people. It's all straight and narrow. Jason, you really stay focused because I have 4 girls. Every time I meet a young lady, my first thought, even as I'm looking at you, is that's somebody's daughter. That's all I can think about anymore. That's why I think it's absolute justice for the good Lord to give every man daughters. It's good for you, trust me. It grows in a tremendous way. But that whole integrity piece really does roll into what we're lacking at the state, local, and in my opinion, the national levels of politics here in our country and here in the state of Maryland. We lack people that understand that integrity is not what you do in front of people when it's time to give the great big speech. It's what you do back in those corners when the opportunity to give those deals to your best friend about a windmill that would waste taxpayer dollars, but you continue to push hundreds of millions of dollars and transfer them out of the Transportation Trust Fund and issue to try to sell us on wind energy that's not even as efficient as regular energy, and then over-regulate the energy community to keep them from growing larger and larger in terms of traditional energy. Those types of things over and over and over again, they speak to something that I consider to be a lack of integrity at the highest levels. Think about a government that we currently have, just came out of this past session, that would impose upon teachers in this state. Impose upon teachers in this state. Impose upon teachers in this state of taking their salary from them and giving it to the union, whether they're part of the union or not. I want you to let that sit in for a second. In other words, if you're a teacher and you decide to teach and you don't want to join the union, it doesn't matter. They're going to take union dues out of your check whether you ask for it or not. There's nothing constitutionally correct about it, whether you look at the United States Constitution or whether you look at the Maryland Constitution. There's nothing right about that at all. It's not even democratic. It certainly doesn't echo to freedom. See, I've never been anti-union. My company, Centos Corporation, is principally non-union because we believe that our managers and supervisors ought to be able to talk to our frontline employees and carry on a conversation and care about them and their welfare and take care of them financially and in all aspects the same way we do with our management. And if we can't do the job right, then absolutely bring a union in because we deserve that, because we should be doing better. I mean, I'm non-union. I'm principally non-union, but I'm not anti-union. That's the word I want to use, anti-union. But if anybody were to tell me that in this day and age, they can take money out of my paycheck, whether I join a specific club or union or not, there's something wrong with that. Why is that? Well, if you take a look at where our current governor is getting the majority amount of his campaign contributions, I begin to understand why those types of decisions have been made. There's something wrong with that. My wish in some cases is that Governor O'Malley had 2 daughters instead of 2 sons. I think he'd acted better as a governor. I think they would have made him better by now. But it's not just there. It's in just about every area that I see currently in politics, whether statewide or at a national perspective. I have a very real, clear, and simplistic view of Maryland. And on top of that view, I also have a very real and clear, simplistic vision for our state. I understand where we are. Most Marylanders do not. Let me give you a small example. We just passed a budget, Maryland did, under the current executive of $36.5 billion in spending. $36.5 billion. $36.5 billion. Well, what was it last year? That's a great question. You're asking good questions. Last year it was $34.5 billion, somewhere thereabouts. So they increased their spending by $2 billion. Now, last I checked, almost 8%. Last I checked, I didn't get an 8% increase in my check. Did you? If you did, I want to know what industry you're in because I want to join it. I didn't get that. The reason I bring that up to you is instead of having zero baseline budgeting, which I'm a big fan for, which says, what did we spend last year? Let's take what we spent last year and justify the funds you want to spend this year, but we're not going to exceed where we are last year. That doesn't make any sense. Why should our government grow any faster than everyday people's wallets and pocketbooks? It doesn't make sense, especially when you consider this fact that $36.5 billion is coming from you. It's coming from you. They have to find a way to take more money from you. If you combine that with the fact that as the state of Maryland, we're one of the wealthiest states in the country. How is it that we're one of the wealthiest states in the country, but every year they keep finding a way to tax more and more and more money from our paychecks in the form of fees? For crying out loud, we even have a rain tax now. which I would love to discuss with anyone who have questions on. It is absolutely absurd. That stems from the fact that the EPA, the federal government, has placed upon our state government a mandate in order to clean up the Chesapeake Bay, I guess, to provide several billions of dollars more from Maryland as in an effort to clean up the bay because of runoff stormwater that comes as a result of something as natural as rain. Based upon percentages, larger counties like yours have to pay larger percentages of that tax over the next 4 to 5 years. What's even worse than that is a gas tax that they just passed, which after 5 years, because it's progressive. What does that mean? That means every year the tax continues to increase whether they voted in or not. In fact, like Congress's salaries, they have to vote to stop the tax increase. If they take no vote at all, it just keeps going up and up and up on your gas. In the year 2016, if we don't stop it, you're going to pay an extra 50.3 cents a gallon more than you pay right now in gas. And they just passed this. We're the wealthiest state in the union, well, the second wealthiest state in the union. We pay more tax per capita than our neighbors in 48 other states in this country, making us the most unfriendly state in terms of business or even middle class citizens in the country. Why is this? Where do they expect this money to come from? Go back to the initial conversation or the initial statement I brought up, 36.5 billion. In other words, they increased it from 34 to 36 billion. Of that 36 billion, they're counting on 9 billion of it to come from the federal government in the form of stimulus and grants. Now, you don't have to be a mathematician to figure this out. I'm going to go a little slow, just for the benefit of my left brain, because the right one kind of gets a little ahead of itself, and hopefully it might benefit you all as well. If you take 36 and subtract 9, what do you get, 27?
Yeah.
27%, not just 27 billion, but 27% of our budget every year comes from the federal government. Which means after they've taxed you with this gas tax, additional fees to cross over bridges, and all these other taxes that they're taking money from you, to include the rain tax, which is a new tax and fee that they just passed. Now, if you buy something on the internet, there's something called an internet tax. By the time all these taxes are done, from you wealthy Marylanders, because I know all y'all are wealthy, and if that is the case, do not leave here without writing a $4,000 check to the bank. Because y'all are so wealthy, you're giving your money away anyway. Might as well give it to a good cause. Right, Rosha? I think she's a good cause. After it's all said and done, they don't make off of your dollar but $27 billion, which means if they don't get the extra 9 from the federal government, we have a deficit. That's why every year, although you have one side that will tell you that we meet that we have a balanced budget, there's another voice that you always hear that says we run a structural deficit every year. Have you ever heard that? Ever heard that? It only comes from those who have the moral courage to actually say it. Because the truth of the matter is, if the federal government decides not to send us the stimulus or the grants, all we have is 27 billion. But we have approved for 36 billion in spending. Now enter sequestration. It gets really interesting here. Because when you look per capita at Virginia and Pennsylvania and Delaware, our neighboring states, we have the most per capita of military retirees and government contractors in our region. Which means our region depends upon spending from the federal government. And because it takes their money to balance out our budget, it's like a hook in a noose. In a federal Jeffersonian democracy, we call this a democratic republic. I like to call it a Jeffersonian democracy. I know you're pretty bored with the history lesson, but it's important for this purpose. In a federalism, states have rights, individual rights, which means even though the federal government may pass something, states can say, no, not us, we're not doing that.
That's absolutely right.
Because we have a federalism. But when the federal government provides money for you to help to balance your budget, and you say no, and they say then we'll take the stimulus from you, then all of a sudden you have to say
Yes.
yes. It's like your neighbor. Let's just say you and I are neighbors, because you're a wealthy guy. And I borrow, I have a mortgage of $10,000 every month to pay my house bill. And I borrow 6 of it from my good neighbor. He gives me $6,000 every month. I only bring in $4,000 every month. And there's a problem between our yards. His yard is right next to mine. He says, Charles, I need you to cut my yard for me. If I say no, I run the risk. Not just of damaging a relationship, but he may say, well, if you don't cut my yard, I'm not giving you $6,000 this month. So how many believe I will cut the yard? Exactly. So when the federal government says, listen, either you pass this and go along with this and get behind this and push your citizens to get behind it, or you're going to be $9 billion short, what do you think our state officials do? They hook, line, and sinker try to fall in line with President Obama's agenda for the country, which ends up the agenda for our state. What's worse is you couple that with the idea of a governor that currently wants to run for president and be as far left as the current president as possible to win his party's nomination. You kind of get the idea of why we are where we are. Something has to change. If it doesn't change soon, we're going to lose our state. My hat goes off to states like Georgia, Texas, South Carolina. There's some strong states out there that have severed ties with the federal government, which means they can afford to sue the government over Obamacare and win for their states. There's nothing the administration can do with a state like Georgia who says there's not going to be an Obamacare here, because the only thing the federal government can do, see, the federal government can't send in troops and Marines and say, you will do what we say. They can't do that. When Georgia says no, they got to say, okay, well then you're going to get $5 billion less in transportation. And Georgia turns around and says, that's fine. We've got the money in our own coffers. There's nothing like financial independence. It reminds me of a conversation I had with my daughters, especially the oldest one, Chelsea. This is a good one. Remember this one? She comes home. I can share this, and don't do this. Don't do this to your dad. I'll be so disappointed. She comes home. First, she asks me. She says, Daddy, can I get a third earring? Mind you, she has two. She wants a third one up here. She said, Daddy, I'm 18 now. I really don't have to ask you. This is so hard for me, Dad. I took a deep breath. I looked at my baby. I said, no, you're not going to get a third earring up there. This is not romper room. Two is enough. That's all you need. How many does your mom have? That's all many you have. Well, about 3 weeks goes by, and we sit at the dinner table. Because I make a habit of having dinner with my children at least twice a week. At least. Sometimes more, but at least twice a week. What do you think happens on one Sunday that she showed?
Third earring.
She forgot to take it out, and she had it looped up.
Yeah, I raised $2.
I looked at her, and mind you, she sat right next to me at dinner this time. So she was within arm's reach, Barbara. You talk about discipline. I'm so proud of myself. Because there was a time when I would grab her ferociously. But I looked at her. I looked at Rosha. I looked at her. I said, what in the world is that in your ear? She looks back at me. She says, well, it's an earring. I said, well, when did you buy it? She said, well, I bought it last week. I said, wait a minute. Didn't I say not to buy it? She said, yes. I said, why'd you buy it? She said, because it looks nice and I wanted it. I said, go to my room and wait there. I couldn't even eat dinner anymore. I was so upset. I took a walk around the house. Oh, come on. No. This is getting good. I can't stop. Okay, I'm almost done. I took a walk around the house, and I made my way to the room where they always try to stop me in the middle of my speeches because they say I'm going too long.
Q&A.
Okay, I took a walk around the house. I met her in the bedroom. This is the O'Malley administration right here. I kid you not, because we're just tied to the federal government. And I looked at her and I said, honey, I said, let's just take the earring thing aside and let's have a father-daughter conversation. You knew I didn't want that earring in your ear. You knew I didn't want you to buy it. But you made a conscious decision to do something you knew I did not want you to do because you wanted to. She said yes. I said, and you feel like you can do that? Why? She said, because I'm 18. So I looked at her and I said this, you know what, that's fine. I'm taking a deep breath. You're 18. I haven't spanked you in 6 years. I'm not going to break that trend today, although I want to. But you're 18. You're a little woman. You got stuff that nobody can touch. I got it. Fine. But here's what you're going to do. You're about to make a choice. I want you to make the right choice. But it's your choice because you chose to get that earring. You have one or two choices. The first choice is you can take that earring out right now and leave it right here on the desk and you let that ear close. I'm going to check it every day until that hole closes and I don't have it anymore. Or you can keep that earring in and give me the keys to the car I just bought you. Now I'm taking possession of it. walk to work from here on out. And I walked out the room. I walked out, got some water, came back. The earring was on the dresser, and she left the room. Because she learned a lesson. Until I'm prepared to pay for my own stuff, even if I'm 29, I still have to do what somebody tells me to do, as long as I'm financially obligated to them. Same way with our state. Until we gain some financial independence in this state, until we start being fiscally responsible, until we stop raising taxes that are pushing the middle class and businesses out of our state at the rapid rate, we will not have the kind of federal independence that our state deserves. And outside of that, being a Marine officer for the past 16 years, our financial condition, trust me when I tell you, it is a matter of national security, whether you want to believe it or not. If we don't get our fiscal house in order, we're going to lose our nation in so many ways. And in my opinion, it starts right here in the state of Maryland. The opportunity we have in front of us is huge. I have a closing comment, but before I get to that, I want to open it up for questions so I don't get any more trouble from Karen. And you know what? I was giggling here because Chick had made the comment. Where's Chick? Chick made the comment that he's here because Karen's here, right? And Dale and I have talked about that, the Dales and Tammy here because Karen's here. And then I started laughing because it dawned on me. I got a call from this lady over 2 years ago. She tells me to meet her at Starbucks. I was just coming out of Saudi Arabia too. I meet her at Starbucks with my wife. She sat across from us at Starbucks and said, "You're going to run for governor, and I'm going to run your campaign." I said, "I am." Then we talk about it. Oh, so we're all here because of her. So blame it on her for crying out loud. Where's Dave at? Dave, help out for crying out loud. So to that end,
Good one.
are there any questions? Because I know you have to have some. And let's ask about 2 or 3 questions. And then I want to conclude with something very important to me that I need for every person in this room to know about me. Scarlett, of course, the woman of the house.
I just know that there are a couple people that I know have made comments to me with an uncertainty of what the Obamacare is, what it means for a state, and what necessarily your financial independence from the federal government would mean that we have the ability to say no.
Yes.
What would that do for the state to be able to do that?
Oh, for us to be able to say no to Obamacare automatically switches the lid on for so many small businesses to find haven in the state of Maryland. It would do the exact same thing that this amnesty has done when it comes to illegal immigrants. That's caused many to flee to our country. And I want to make sure I'm careful when I say that because I understand immigration. I just believe it should be done the right way. I have a solution for that. But being able to be financially independent enough to say, listen, President Obama, thanks, but no thanks. Obamacare in Maryland is not going to happen. We'll fight it. You can't impose it on us. We have a constitutional right, and we'll take it to the courts through our state's attorney if we have to, which we don't have one that will fight it right now. But he'll get on board once we get elected. It gives us the type of freedom, financial freedom, for business to say, you know what, let's come back to Maryland. We're not going to have to pay that undue burden because businesses will tell you it is going to cost them tremendously to conform to this Obamacare. And right now, all roads lead to Obamacare being active and 100% by 2015, 2016. And business owners are terrified of that. In fact, they're already looking for other opportunities because of what it's going to cost them. It's not a successful solution. If you just look at where we are right now when it comes to doctors in this state, because of malpractice and regulation issues, we have more doctors that practice medicine in Maryland, but they live in Virginia, Pennsylvania, and Delaware because they cannot afford to do business here. Because malpractice insurance is so expensive. So they'd much rather be in Virginia and let you come across the bridge into Virginia and get your consultation there and then go from there because it's just hard. It's expensive. And if you think that's bad, you add the additional burden of what Obamacare brings on businesses and brings on the medical field. You're going to have, for the most part, watered down doctors that probably skated through because the good doctors aren't going to want to practice because they can't make any money.
Right.
It's not advantageous to them. It's a world of hurting. Just imagine the DMV on steroids and then sit yourself in a doctor's office has the same type of conditions. Take a number, go to a window, meet somebody with an attitude to tell you you're not even sick and have you sit back down. Or what's worse, don't even prognose you properly.
Right.
Don't even diagnose you properly and give you something you don't even need after you waited for 5 hours taking a number.
And it doesn't matter how much money you have, you
Nope.
go buy your own independent
Yep.
thing, it doesn't.
It doesn't.
Actually, he's setting it up for tiers. You're gonna have
It's
a lower
scary.
end tier, a middle end tier, and the upper end tier,
Yeah.
which is totally
Yeah,
ridiculous.
and the only way for us to get around that is we have to change the leadership in this state and have someone at the backbone that says off the bat, we will not accept Obamacare here. But here's the piece that's very important when we start talking to those in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. We have to explain why it's not good for the state and do it in a way that they will understand. You can't come at it from the, like a lot of Republicans do, from off the top bench and come down hard and say how stupid everything in the administration is because you've already lost them.
Right.
One thing that we have as an advantage is we know how to talk to people in a way they understand. I think that's why we have such a strong Prince George's County team and Baltimore City team, because we talk to people. We left a group, there was 35, 40 of them, ministers in Baltimore City. They have a ministers alliance. And between those 30, 35 ministers, they represent upwards of 20, 30,000 Baltimore cities. And after leaving that meeting, we had 7 different volunteers, all pastors, that want me to come into their church and speak to their church, large church in Baltimore City. That's how you get across. You don't come lead with insults, and you also don't sacrifice your message. You just speak the truth. And what I'm finding is more people agree with our philosophy than they do to disagree with our philosophy. But you got to stay on message, on point. We've got to be able to have the fiscal discipline to be able to say to Washington, D.C., nah, we've got a better way when it comes to medical, our plans and our health insurance plans. We're going to work it our way and go from there. What would be better than to have as our Health and Human Services Secretary than Dr. Ben Carson? Yes, sir.
You know, the average American citizen who works, you can call them blue collar workers, but they're not even blue collar workers anymore under the taxes. They don't even realize with Obamacare, because that's what O'Malley's been taxing the hell out of that for, they don't even realize that it's going to cost them, the average home or individual who's actually working in the workforce, is going to cost them every bit of $12,000 a year out of their paycheck. And that's just the beginning.
I know.
And that message needs to be put across. Family members will
Right.
definitely have a heart attack when they really realize the figure.
But even more than that, they have to know why that figure is so expensive. They understand that if you currently have 15 to 20% of your population that doesn't have health care, and then all of them flood in for health care, and they're not even paying for the health care they have, because most people under this law, what it allows them to do, because
Free medical care.
because
Who's gonna pick it up?
it accepts people with pre-existing conditions, you can opt out of not buying it until you actually get sick, and then buy it as you're getting treatment, and they have to take you and they can't turn you down. And then when they impose the bill on you, you didn't even pay from past bills for the services you're getting because you just joined it. All you're going to do is take a chance. Well, what is the chance going to cost you? $5,000? If you get caught. The IRS doesn't even catch half the people that are doing things illegally when it comes to paying income tax. How are they going to catch 345 million people, 1, 2, a million, 3 million of them, 10% of them doing the wrong thing? It's just not going to work. You got to hire an additional amount of people to not catch the people that they're not going to catch, but fill up a room and say they're doing the best job they can. It is the absolute wrong way to go. And I could spend 45 minutes to an hour talking about why it's so wrong. That's why it's going to be expensive, because those, get this, it's like the Second Amendment issue that I take issue with. Those that are doing things, and I get passionate, calm down. Those that are doing things legally are going to be paying the lion's share of those who aren't paying it at all. That's the problem when government tries to fix a system.
What do you think about Maryland getting rid of the death penalty?
I don't agree with it.
Neither do I.
I don't agree with it, but that might be the Marine side of me, and I know there might be some compassionate people here in the room, but I think there are some issues that you have to have the leverage of being able to say, hey, turd, if you do that, it's going to cost you your life, period. Because I guarantee you, in my home, with my 4 girls, if you break in, we're the judge and jury. Period. Dot.
Amen.
You should be blessed if you get out of there. And I know you're taping that, and that makes me to be right. I know Jay's like, don't say that anymore. Don't say that. They're not going to vote. I could care less. When it comes to my daughters and my wife and I'm not home and we live out in the boonies and somebody breaks in, she already knows what to do. She's ready to go. It's that simple for us. So, you know, you need to pray you get to a court system, because in my world, I told Chelsea, if somebody breaks in, lock the door, let mom take it from there. We make sure they stay in until it's over. Yes, ma'am, but then you got to cut that out some kind of way. Don't get upset with me. He's already mad. That's what you get when you have an intimate conversation with somebody. It kind of gives you how he really feels. But you know, when you're raising a family in this world, I get so concerned about that. I really do.
I'm actually
it's not like I have any sons. If I had a son, I wouldn't quite be so dramatic. But when I leave the house with 5 ladies in the house. That bothers me. In the middle of nowhere. So again, I got a nice little sign. Break in if you want to.
You need a first responder at the house ASAP.
And no one bothers to run the trailer of that episode when that mother took her children, hid inside of a closet because someone broke in her house and said, take whatever you want. The knucklehead wouldn't take. Instead, he's coming after them, breaks into the closet. There's nothing in the closet but them. Thank God she had a weapon.
Thank God she
had a weapon. That's what I say about that. You have the TV, whatever you want taken, leave us alone. What's that moron do? Let that be 1255 Liberty Rose. Please do that at my home. Because my babies know what to do.
All right, I got a question.
I'm going to leave it there. She does, and then you do. Yes, sir. Yes, ma'am.
I know I don't have a question.
Okay.
I'm just
I got a question.
Wait, Tammy.
I am really worried about my buddy Scarlett. So mom,
Yes.
struggling, and I've known her for I know her struggles. I know what she does. She works so hard to
Yes.
take care of her kids.
Yes.
I'm worried about when this rain tax kicks in and you see
Yes.
her property,
Yes.
and what is that going to do to her property?
Well, one thing I like about one thing I like about her property is when I drove up on her property, there was gravel for the most part, and then by the time she got to the concrete, it wasn't as big. Here's how they're going to tax her, and this is good for all of you all to know. They're doing it based upon asphalt, and they got a little big brother has a little satellite up in the sky, and they have a way to measure how much in square footage your asphalt has, and based upon that, that's the runoff steam water or stormwater.
Asphalt and like roof space too, so
Yes.
that if I have,
She has a
Well,
bar.
so like the barns and all that is all.
I didn't think about that when I drove
Shared
up.
driveway.
That does count. Say
What
again?
about shared driveways?
Well, that's going to be a difficulty. How they determine that, and you can always in that case, look for there to be something done absolutely not right and being overcharged and overbilled. And here's the thing: you can't even fight it.
Oh no, we were going to be fined because our driveway was not blacktopped or asphalt, because there's a creek at the bottom, and any rainwater was pushed down, and they were like, you need to
Right.
put asphalt on it, so we do.
Right.
So they were getting ready to
So
go.
now,
ridiculous.
taxes.
And it's going to hit this, Tam, it's going to hit on her property taxes.
Right. So her roof, have you
That's where
seen
it's
her
coming
barn
from,
and
your
stuff?
property.
Like, I'm really concerned.
I'm
Like, do they
concerned
know
about it,
her
too.
roof?
Now, is it cheaper? Like I pay less taxes because I'm ag, just in general, for this county. Like I pay substantially less than most people would think I pay,
Because you're on a farm?
because I have ag. Now, would it be different for this rain tax or no? Because I know like nonprofit
As of
organizations
right now,
and
no.
churches
The
are
t-
tax exempt, but they're not rain tax
No,
exempt.
they're not.
Yeah.
Churches are paying it too. You're exactly right. See,
Well,
the law.
Hartford County just passed something today, I heard on the news, where nonprofits are exempt.
I
They are.
think they tried, and then I think someone
Because as of right now,
vetoed it or did.
Yeah, I've got to
something.
research.
Depends on the county council.
Okay.
Hartford just passed something,
Okay.
where people inside the municipality are exempt, and nonprofits are exempt.
Okay.
Because I think the church up the street, like their estimate was like, I don't know, like almost $10,000 or
Yeah.
something in additional taxes this year, because St. Michael's Church pretty much like is like 2 acres worth of building and like 2 acres worth of blacktop, and they only own like 4.5 acres. Like their whole place is blacktop or white space.
It's ridiculous. And getting back to your point and your buddy's point that's concerned about you, we're going to have to overturn that bill. We got to change it. But you know what? All of these excise taxes, if we don't, I try to stay away from speaking in terror terms, like everything is the house is on fire all the time. Because Politicians and statesmen do it often, and stateswomen, they do it often when they want to win a vote. So I try to stay away from that because I'm not trying to win votes right now. What I'm trying to do is convince people that there's a better way we can go, and I'd like to lead you down that road of what's better. But I cannot underscore just how big a deal these last bit of taxes, not just this year, but next year, are going to hit us because we have a governor that's trying to prove a point. See, everything he talks about now, they're talking points for a run for president. I've been able to make us more green in Maryland. I've been able to introduce wind energy in Maryland. I've been able to help the EPA lower its deficit. And all of these are talking points at our fiscal expense. We're going to have the wherewithal to say, you know what? This guy, Charles Lollar, I don't care what it takes. Get him elected so he can change this stuff. If we don't, we're leaving. Maryland's going to be broken. What frustrates me is this governor could care less once he's gone.
Right.
He ain't looking out for the folk.
No, he's not. And I'm not convinced that anyone in his administration wants to do otherwise because they're not standing up against him.
Exactly.
They're just going along to get along.
Can I ask a question?
Yes. Sorry, Chick.
It's going to be very difficult for you to win without Democrat support. So what are you doing to get that, to garner that Democrat support? You have to have it.
Absolutely. And she's a plant. That's a great question. I have to be honest for disclosure.
I am not a plant.
Okay, I love you. You're not a plant, but yes, sure. But look, no, we are working hard in those areas where we know the vote matters most when it comes to Democrats. There's three that we're targeting on. And not just these three, but primarily right now, these three. Prince George's County is one of them. We're having a lot of success in that county because, quite honestly, the demographics of Prince George's County are very different than Baltimore City. In Prince George's County, they're most affluent black Americans than anywhere else in the country. These are business owners. By and large, 63% of them are contractors. Another 30% of them work in Washington, D.C. or for the state, or excuse me, for local government. So there's an understanding there of those six-figure single families that they don't want to lose what they have and are tired of being taxed. We're focused on them. We're having conversations with them. We're going house party to house party, organization to organization, church to church, because we refuse to take those votes for granted. We're also reaching out to Hispanic votes. And we're doing very well with that. We managed to bring one of the regional chairs of Cobb City, Maryland, onto our team to help us run for governor in 2014. So we're leaving no stone unturned. Not by sacrificing the conservative message, because you don't have to. Our mantra, vote the way you live. Everywhere we go in those three counties, vote the way you live. Vote the way you live. If you don't believe that you should spend more than you earn, then vote the way you live. If you don't believe you should use borrowed money to pay your bills, then vote the way you live. If you don't believe that 27% of your budget should come from the federal government and you can't sustain yourself on your own, then vote the way you live. And we're having success specifically in those counties because of both the gambling bill and the same-sex marriage bill, which many in the diverse communities are very frustrated and disappointed on. I can share with you some conversations I'm having in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. It would only extend our time longer, but these folks are adamant about a change. And they, not just any change, they're getting behind us to run for governor. So we are not ignoring any votes. We're not doing the typical Republican thing and then try to find a way to sneak a comment like 47% of Maryland won't vote for me. That is not true. 47 will vote for me. 63 will, because we're coming with the right message. I'm not hiding anything. I say the same thing in Prince George's County that I say in here. The exact same thing. Ask anyone that goes around with all the different places I speak. I don't change the voice. So you say, then how are you having more success than Ehrlich and others? Well, easy, because many of them didn't go there. They talked about being there, but they didn't go into the homes of many of these folks. They didn't go into Baltimore City schools and have the conversations with teachers and principals. These are things that we are doing, not talking about doing. We're doing it. And we go in there saying, listen, you might not agree with 5% of what I say, but you'll agree with 95% of it. Don't leave me for that 5%. And by the way, what has O'Malley done for you lately? And everyone says the same thing. Nothing.
They haven't gotten a raise in 6 years.
Exactly. When it comes to unemployment and those hot button issues, they're just as frustrated as we are. That's what we're doing.
My question is, how are we going to keep millionaires here? Because I'm going to be honest with you, if this election goes south,
Yes.
I'm actually permanently thinking of pulling up states and moving to my property.
Brother, you are, and 90% of the people in this room are feeling the same
90%
way.
of the people in this
At
room
least.
are all.
Here's how we're going to do it, by winning in 14.
And
We have to
my
win.
family's been in Maryland for what, 3 generations?
We have to win.
Actually, we've been here since Maryland was here. I
Yes,
mean,
sir.
Goldsboro.
We absolutely have to win. There is no way that my wife and I would sacrifice the future of our children and basically live off of our 401k and take money out of money that we don't even have. Thank God she can save really good. Bless her heart. We wouldn't put when we were in business, to be quite honest with you, when I was with Cintas full time as an executive, life was wonderful. Life has been less than wonderful because we made this decision to sacrifice specifically because we don't want to leave Maryland and we don't want our loved ones and our friends to leave Maryland. And we believe that Maryland can go in a better direction. That's why we're as adamant as we are.
We shouldn't have to leave.
Quite plain and simple, brother, we're going to win.
Exactly.
Yeah.
I know,
mean,
like,
it's going to hell in the handbag. It's disgusting.
she was talking about the demographics and like Republicans losing. Like we lost the
What about
presidency
Montgomery?
basically because of black votes, Hispanic votes,
Recount.
and the single white
Yeah.
women
Really?
who are the ages between like 30, whatever. So
Oh,
like
yeah.
that population of women, we understand like what Hispanics and what a lot of African Americans believe in and what you're doing like PG County, Montgomery, and Baltimore City per se, but this group of women that I don't know where they.
for us.
I don't.
Are you talking about you said the presidential vote?
But
Is that what
like,
you said?
like a lot of these women for some reason, like I blame it half on education and liberal arts colleges half the time, but like this group of people who are still single, waiting to get married and waiting for all of this stuff, and they seem to always go Democrat way. I'm not too sure why.
I do.
How do we get them?
Oh,
What are you
know
doing to get them? Or what do you
It's-
think is their biggest concerns as to why they always seem to want to go? Is it because they want to save the world?
Well,
They want
that's a part of it, but it's easier than you actually think. Let's put it this way. Republicans lost the women vote, single women vote, more so than Democrats winning them.
to, right.
We absolutely lost them with stupidity.
Well, we
This
do that
whole
with a lot of
this whole issue behind rape, behind abortion, we continue to slap women in the face and then tell them to vote for us. You can't do that. Single or married women, in my opinion, in my world, and this may come because I've been raised by 4 girls and a wife, women are intellectual equals. In my world, they're actually superiors. I learn more by going home than I do away from home. And you have to provide people a choice. This is not 1940 anymore. You can't look at single women and say, you know what, shame on you. There's nothing you can. You're not electing me to be your pastor. You're electing me to be your governor. There's a difference between the two. You have to live your life the way you see fit and what's best for you and your family. At the end of the day, my hope is by generating a relationship with you as a governor or friend, you say to me, Charles, things are going so well in your family. What are you doing? How are you doing that? Give me a private lesson on what you're doing. Then I'm open to give you some private comments. Well, this is what we're doing, whether it works for you or not, that's something different. But to use the governorship or the House of President or even as a congressman or U.S. Senator to try to say women can't do this and men, it's the wrong way to go. It's like this whole thing with the Marine Corps. Folks have said, you know what? Because now the Commandant Marine Corps has opened up IOC for women officers. They can go through infantry officer course, the hardest infantry officer course in the world. And now it's open for women to join. And some Marines are like, are you kidding me? Don't let women do that. My perspective is simple. If a woman wants to join IOC and give it a shot, let her do it. It's going to wear down her body. It's going to tear her up. I know firsthand. My back is still not the same since that 20-year infantry officer course. I know what it's going to do to her. When she puts those motors on her back to carry for 9 miles, you don't have to tell them not to do it. They'll volunteer not to do it. Most men volunteer not. You got to be an idiot to do that. But the point is this. Everyone still deserves the choice. If they want the choice to do it. My girls don't want to be Marines. One I'm trying to make be a Marine. But they don't want to be Marines. But people, male or female, deserve a choice. And when you stand up and say, with the cameras rolling, that if a woman is raped in the time that if a woman's raped in any situation and she becomes pregnant as a result of that, and if she is, that means if she does become pregnant, that means she wasn't really raped. That's a stupid comment to make, no matter who you are. And then that gets vocalized over television. I love the 47% comment. Republicans looked out of touch. And if I were a woman, I wouldn't have voted for a Republican either, just because that idiot made that comment. What are we doing? We're having conversations with people. We're looking beyond gender. We're settling on one simple fact. Maryland is fiscally out of order. Nothing matters if we have no money. We could want to send our children to the best school in the world. But if we're broke, they can't go anywhere.
Right.
There's no sense talking about individual gender, black, white, or any other rights if we can't even get the money thing right. And the money thing is so wrong. We're so far behind. We're 27% in debt every year. So we have to change financially where we are by making fiscal, responsible choices. Once we start doing that, we can entertain other conversations later. But what I want Marylanders to know, single women, single men, married families, gay and lesbian voters, we all know the same thing. I'm not running to be your priest. I'm running to be your governor. If you want to know my personal response when it comes to those issues, ask me. I'll tell you. I'm not hiding anything. I'm a pro-life guy. I'm not running to be your priest.
Right.
I'm running to be your governor. And as long as your decisions don't violate his money, I've got no problem with what you're doing. But if I got to use his money to pay for your decisions, I got a problem with that. I don't care who you are or what your gender is. We have conversations like that, we win 10 times out of 10.
You mentioned some of the stupid comments made by Republican senatorial candidates this past cycle. And yeah, they were idiotic, but are they any more idiotic than what Joe Biden says every day?
That's true.
And, so unfortunately, I've had this conversation with my daughters, and I say I don't think Republicans are inherently more honest than Democrats. It's just that Democrats can get away with it.
Yeah.
So they take what they can get because the press doesn't hold them to a higher standard.
Well, let's think about
Nobody
that.
takes Joe Biden
What an
seriously anyway.
outstanding comment. And I want to add to what he just said. We have to think about why Joe Biden and others are able to get away with some of the things they say, specifically to the audience they say them in. Well, they're gonna put y'all back in. They're gonna put y'all back in chains. Can you imagine somebody telling me that? That is a funny, stupid, sarcastic comment. But think about it this way: they're able to get away with comments like that because perception-wise, they are emotionally and socially more in touch than Republicans are. See, in our household, we have this rule, and you do too. You don't air out your own dirty laundry. There's certain things that Dale's brother can say to Dale that I can't say yet. Although I'm growing closer and closer to Dale every day, and we'll catch up to it. But there's certain things that Dale's brother can say to him that I can't say to him because of relationship. And in many people's minds, black, Hispanic, gay and lesbian, whatever the diverse community is that's out there, honest to goodness, they believe the Democrats are more socially in touch and emotionally in touch with them than Republicans are. So when we make comments like that, we sound insensitive. When they make comments like that, it was a funny comment made by their cousin on their mother's side. That literally is how it is. But there's a reason for that. Because some of the comments we made and some of the ways we've targeted issues, some of the conversations we've had has put us out of touch with everyday Americans. We have ourselves to blame. There's certain conversations we should be able to have with people too. For example, we ought to be able to tell folks having an entitlement mindset is contrary to the freedoms of this country. But you can't just come out and say that to folks without first prefacing it with something, showing people you care, giving them, like Dr. Carson does, giving them where you've come from to where you are. Then you make that statement and people understand that better. But we have to get rid of this sense that we are insensitive, socially, emotionally, fiscally. We know we are. In fact, we're part of it. We're going that way together. But we have to find out the verbiage and the things that we're using that literally divide a room before we even open our mouths. Democrats get the benefit of the doubt, and they'll continue to do so until we as conservatives show that we are the same as they are in the room. And that's the success that we're having in Prince George's County and Baltimore City. We are meeting them where they are, or they wouldn't keep coming up and asking, how can we help? We want you in our church, etc. and so forth.
Well, Al Gore made that 3/5 comment in the 2000 election.
Yeah.
And I had one comment about help the Obamacare. I'm wondering if Nancy Pelosi will be able to get any more facelifts under Obamacare.
Get a sex change though.
And then the other question I had is,
Karen, take that off the tape.
what was the Maryland budget when Ehrlich left office?
Great question. Great question.
Because O'Malley says he's not spending any more money.
Yes, he is.
And anybody who can count, even a first grader can see he's spending more money, except for members of the
As soon as
press.
O'Malley, there was a positive count when
Yeah,
O'Malley was
there wasn't a
elected.
deficit.
2 weeks after O'Malley was elected, we're $350 million in debt. I said,
Yeah,
really?
how's that?
What did you
I mean,
spend
it's
it on?
astonishing
You only
that,
been here 2
that
weeks.
he says to the press, we're not spending any more money, and we're not in the deficit, and yet they are, and nobody reports it.
So
Once
how long do you
again,
think it would take you to get us to a point where we're not spending the government's money. We're not spending the federal government's money. You know, a lot of times these politicians get in and say, oh, I can do this, but then once you get in, it's a 10-year plan. You've got to keep me in office for 10 years because I can't just instantly cut out $9 billion or billion, whatever it was, dollars from the budget. I'm going to have to take 500,000 away from the budget each year. So you got to keep me in office for 8 or 9 years before I can get Maryland to the point where we're able to say to the federal government, no thank you. Thanks, but no thanks.
Well, how much time? That is a wonderful question. There are different ratios, conversations, statistics out there that say it would take 2, 3, 4, 6 years. Based upon our calculations, just kind of playing with the numbers, it just depends on how fast we can bring business back. A big part of our plan off the bat requires cutting taxes. You cannot implement our plan for Maryland without cutting taxes.
We reviewed the report.
We want to
We're not using it.
Yes, we want to cut taxes at a minimum, corporate tax at 41%, personal income tax at almost 30%. We want to reduce everything down to 5%. Now, one of the first issues and questions that maybe people ask is, if you cut taxes, how are you going to gain more revenues for us to balance our budget? In my world, it's simple. It's the same way I did at my corporation when I was responsible for $23 million a year. Now, albeit 36 billion and 23 million are two different numbers. I got it, but the principle is the same.
Budgeting.
You go back to zero-based regulation. You tell every department, first of all, we're starting with where we were last year. We're not looking for the wish list that people do that y'all are used to doing every year. Give me your wish list. Let's find a way to pay for it. No. How much did we spend last year? 36 billion?
And was that justified?
That's where we're starting from. And then you say, department by department, justify your expenses. And oh, by the way, you're not going home until you do. Folks say, can you do that? Absolutely. They're my department heads. They work for the governor. Elected officials simply approve the budget that I propose. That's why what you do is you hire people like Dale. You hire folks like Dale and Karen, and you bring them and say, look, you're going to stay here until it's done. You signed up for this. Or you know what? Don't sign up for it. But because somebody asked me, would you consider hiring David Craig or Dan Bongino or these folks within your cabinet? My response was simple. Depends if they're willing to work or not. Because we've had enough showmanship with a bunch of people who can talk well. That's how we got into this mess. We're going to do it the same way. When I took over Cintas Corporation in Landover, Maryland, they brought me up from Georgia to take over their location. It was in the it was 340, 330 out of 350 locations. It was one of the worst locations in the entire company. When I left Cintas, that location in Landover, the top 15% of all of our locations in the country. How did I do it? First thing I did was I left her in Georgia. I literally slept in my office. And I went up there with one mindset. If they're already non-profitable, if turnover is over 23, 24%, if we're already losing money, we got to find out where the leakage is and start with line by line in that budget item, penny by penny, what's it being spent on, bring department